the podcast for neurodivergent weirdos and queers who forget about struggling to adult. They're struggling to human.
At least that's what everyone's telling us.
You're right.
Per usual. But seriously, I'm Angela. People call me Mama Pistachio, bringing sense to the conversation. I help individuals and organizations cultivate skills, spaces, and confidence to advocate for themselves and each other.
And I'm Molly, giving a big fork you to cookie cutter solutions. I help busy as fuck neurodivergent entrepreneurs make shit happen by bringing stability to their businesses while helping them do what makes sense to their brain.
Enough with the chit chat. Let's get down to business. What's the frickin' point?
With our powers combined, we navigate life through the drudgery, dreams, and all that shit in between. Plus, we were already having these conversations anyway, so why not record them, right?
Alrighty then. Get ready to call bullshit on what everyone's saying you should be doing as we navigate the spectrum between what your heart wants and the shit keeping you from it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope you are all who are listening are having a good whatever time of day it is. This week, we're having a conversation that Angela and I have actually been having offline for a couple weeks now. And we were like, podcast episode. And that is, we were talking about masking and medication and meltdowns, overloads, and just how we navigate these with and without medication. Because it's quite the roller coaster of things. And this all started because personal story time. A couple weeks ago, after years of trying to get people to listen to me, I finally saw a new psychiatrist, and she was like, whoa, the neurodiversity in your family. Okay. And like there was a giant pause and big eyeballs. Okay. By the time I listed just like an eighth of the amount of people in my family. So many eyeballs. And then at the end of the session, she was like, and nobody told you you're bipolar ever, because your diagnoses are wrong. And I was like, oh. And so I started a new medication. And so Angela has been on this journey with me as I navigate life on lithium. And I have been struggling because to me, it feels like I was masking more than I knew. And the medication has like ripped the mask off and been like, and survive. And although I feel great, well, not great, I feel better or different. Angela, did your headphones break? I think her headphones broke. And though I feel a little bit better with the medication, the utter uncomfortableness that I've been sitting in of like, who am I? How do I feel these emotions? And what happens? I think Angela's having technical difficulties with her headset.
It's okay now.
Oh, okay. It's good. Okay. I was like, I can't do this alone, Angela. I'm like looking at you like your headphones better work.
But, there's always a backup. I've always got extra headphones over here. It's all good.
I think your mics are switched again, though.
No, they're not. I am plugged in because my headset was dead, apparently, even though it was plugged in overnight.
Okay. We're just going to move on. An appropriate episode for these things to happen.
This has been everything this morning. Camera's not working, Melon kicking us out, internet speeds. It is what it is.
I am proud of us for not currently having a meltdown.
Oh, you know what? About 3 minutes before we came on, I was about at that point. I came on pretty grouchy. The headset did this, and I was like, okay, this is just freaking comical.
It's an appropriate episode for this to happen. Like, I mean, that's what it is. But so I gotta laugh for a few minutes because just all the things. Anyway, for those not watching, Angela's face looks like she kind of wants to chuck the computer or the headset at the computer due to all of the happenings this morning, just to paint the picture for you. But anyway, so this medication and like involuntary demasking has been quite difficult for me, because I'm uncovering things about myself that I didn't know. Like my heightened anxiety and masking was hiding all the other neurodivergent things beneath the surface. Like I have never flapped in my life. I have shake with little fists, and I always thought they were ticks. And I mean, I do tick. I do have Tourette's, but I was at the grocery store yesterday, and now I flap. Not the flapping's bad. I'm not opposed to flapping. It's just new, and that was something I was not anticipating. So, but you and I have been having a lot of conversations about like how medication can stifle what we're used to as far as like an emotional spectrum. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and how
Yeah.
more about that for you?
Like, I have my own experience with medication. Taking medication for ADHD 20 plus years ago when I initially started it. And I am a serial stop taking my medicine because I don't like how it makes me feel person. Um, so ADHD medication, until I found the right one and the right dosage and the right changes in the environment to support my needs to go along with the medication. Not one or the other, but both. Um, for me, I always said it feels like coming down from drugs. It feels like you are, it feels like you're coming clean. For anybody who's ever had addiction and gone through that process, and a lot of us have, coming down, you go from this, well, speed didn't work for me in the same way. But still moving from one state of being into another state of being. For me, I'm high all the time. I have this high energy, this bzzz, go around all the time. Not high like weed high,
That's
but
terrifying.
yeah, I'm speedy. I'm speedy all the time. Naturally, my natural brain is speedy all the time. I actually, because I am clean, I don't do any drugs or any alcohol because that doesn't support my needs and create the appropriate environment for me. So I am not high all the time. But naturally, I'm on speed, right? Like this, the way that everybody describes what speed is like, that's how I feel all the time.
Mhm.
So then when I take medication, I come down and I get to this flat where I'm not experiencing high emotion, or where I don't need to experience high emotion necessarily. And I don't like that feeling, right? It's just like coming off of drugs. It's like I am used to being this energy level and having these thought processes and being able to do 500 things until I can't.
Right.
And then take medication, and suddenly um, I feel nothing.
Yes.
Right? The interoceptive senses, all of our sensory system plays into when we're taking medication. And people are just now really starting to understand the other three senses and starting to put some practices in place where we're having conversations about that. So I think that really needs to be addressed when we're taking medication, and we really need to understand that, and we have to address those sensory changes that we're going to have, because the way our brain is processing input is different, and
Yeah.
therefore our output is going to be different as well.
Right. And like I was telling you and my psychiatrist, I feel like I have to relearn how to navigate the world completely because I am not used to processing anything this way. Like I keep getting frustrated with words because it's not, I have had an allergic reaction where you have zero coherent thought to a medication. It's not fun. And this is not that, but it is like my brain is trying to move at a different speed than it's used to. And so it just like panics and just grabs a word and throws it in there. And then I say like shoe when I meant cinnamon. Like, like something not that extreme usually, but it just throws a word there. And when you have two very literal autistic people in your house with you, when your brain throws in a word that it is trying to just like shove in a like filler spot, it does not work well. Because then you're like, why are you doing that thing? And they say, well, you said this word. And I was like, in the general sense, not in the like literal sense. And then everyone either laughs or gets very angry. It does not work very well. But like, so I have like those types of things, but like grocery shopping did not go well. Did not go well at all. But it's just very weird. But like you said, like I'm used to having two very polar opposite extreme emotions, and I feel like the peaks have been cut off. And so I'm still going like this, but because I was used to so much extreme between the two, like I can't identify emotions quite right because I'm used to happy being like everybody else is ecstatic.
Right.
And so then I just feel like apathy a lot. Although I've noticed this week it's finally starting to like normalize for me, but it took a long time, and I had to have like I'm glad I had understanding of how it works with medication and how it's like you've got to play the long game and you got to trust the process. And I like knew what to look for bad medication side effects, but I had to be in the uncomfortableness of the minor side effects to just let it kind of work its way through. And I am appreciate words. I'm glad that I had the ability and knowledge to sit through that and wait, because how I'm feeling this week is good. Like,
and I will say, I always say that community and our environment is what provides us with our ability versus disability.
Correct.
And you are surrounded by neurodivergent people who support each other and who are very accepting.
That's very true.
Which provides a space for you to be able to sit in the uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right? Because you can be like on Marco, Angela, and we can have a conversation and things can be normalized.
Absolutely.
Whereas a lot of people don't. I mean, I know that I didn't, and I know that a lot of people now today do not have that same space. And this is why neurodiversity on TikTok is such a huge thing, because that is the one space where people feel like they have community and acceptance, right?
Yeah.
So it really is important to have that group of people and to have a community where you can explore yourself in all of the various aspects of you that sometimes happen with medication. When I do a sensory profile of somebody and I'm working with them, I like to do one, if they take medication, I like to do one and say, okay, let's think about how, if you can, how are you without medication? What is your experience without medication? Answer it from that space. What is your experience with the medication? Answer it from that space. Because that gives us two very different results and allows us to really look at the things in the environment that support this person so that they're not completely dependent on medication.
Yeah.
Now, Not because medication is bad. Both of us take medication.
Yes.
It's not that it's a bad thing, but again, we do want to address those environmental concerns as well, to provide the best possible outcome for any person. I mean, if
Yes.
that medication doesn't work, if for some reason you have this medication that works really well and then all of a sudden it doesn't, and your environment isn't providing any supports whatsoever, you're in a hell of a lot worse situation than you would be if you've got some of those environmental supports in place.
Right. And that was something like my kiddo, ADHD autistic, also medication. And recently it just stopped working. Like we hadn't changed dosage, we hadn't changed the environment. Everything was still all the things that we knew to be helping. And we were trying to adjust to these new behaviors that we were seeing. And eventually I was like, okay, they told me last time I waited too long and I didn't have to, let all of us struggle, especially Blaine, kiddos, through that. And so I was like, is what's happening? And the provider was like, oh, we see that with this medication when there's such a low dose that it's just time to knock it up a thing. And you have a good environment, an affirming like house and all of these things. Like we just need to knock it up a notch. And I was like, well, that's easy. Like it was just something easy that we could do. And I feel like it's hard when the kiddos are little, and like as a parent who is also neurodivergent, obviously we've talked about it enough that you would know that about me. But it's hard because there's still some of that parent guilt that I struggle with regards
Oh,
to.
you had major parent guilt when it came time for medication.
Right. Because it was like, did we do everything? And did we do all these things? And even though like the providers were like, you waited longer than most parents would ever wait with the behaviors that you were seeing, it was still like, but we didn't feel like we were doing hardly anything. Like we were obviously accommodating and affirming and doing all of those things, but it still felt like so insignificant. Like there should have been more, that we just felt like, how could this be enough? And that this
Let
is
me
the
just
point, and we
say, it
passed
felt
that.
insignificant to you,
Yes.
but most people looking in would not think that at all. Because you have enough knowledge and enough support with people around you, you really did and do all the things.
Yes. That has been made painfully aware by the 300 people that have told us that. But like, and I did say, well, and just to parents who are listening to this, Blaine, the kiddo at therapy a couple weeks ago, the doctor said, how's medicine going? And Blaine goes, oh, I love it. And I turned to the provider and I said, I wish that more parents knew all the things or had the opportunities to learn all the things, because this is so significant. And I was able to see the changes that were happening and how receptive my kiddo was to what was happening. And that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't have done early intervention at 2.
Right.
And it's like, I see my kiddo who had early intervention, and I see other kiddos who are later diagnosed, but now the same age as Blaine and are just getting diagnosed. And it obviously they're 2 different kids with 2 different behaviors and 2 different things, but it's still so significant, the difference that early intervention had, because when we're moving into meltdowns. When we have meltdowns or overloads, we're able to look at them in a different light. And just that alone with the neurodivergent kiddos, I feel like is super significant. That was my segue. I don't know how I got there.
Okay. So before we actually get into that area,
yes,
let's address accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are in a space where you can access early intervention, as well as have the informed perspective
Right.
to be able to ask for interventions. And a lot of people don't have that, and they don't have that because of stigma.
Yes. And I I want to clarify part of that. I am extremely privileged in the neurodivergent sense because I came from a family of neurodivergent people with people who were teachers and speech pathologists and doctors and nurses. And so all of that, and single parents whose one parent was far. So I got to see so many different ways that and interventions and different things that also gave me just the right amount of information that makes me super privileged in knowing all of the things that I know.
Right. But also having insurance,
Yes.
right? Being
Oh
able to
yeah.
pay to go to a therapist, being able to pay for a, a daycare or a preschool that had access to educators who were informed as well. And a
Living
lot of
in a
people
school
don't,
system. Yeah, the school
yeah, a lot of
system.
people
Yes.
don't have that, right?
Mm-mm.
Um, and it shouldn't matter. Like socioeconomic status shouldn't matter.
No.
The color of your skin shouldn't matter. Your gender shouldn't matter, but it does. All of these things play into accessibility. And because there is so much stigma around anything that is outside of the societal quote unquote, I hate this word, norm,
Mhm.
but that's what it is. It's the societal norm. Anything that falls outside of that and doesn't follow the regular script that make most people comfortable, um, and I would even argue with most people on that one, um, because that stigma is there, the conversations are not being had to support the people who do not have access to some of the same things that you have had
Right.
and that your family has had and that my child had access to, right?
Yeah.
So that makes a big difference. Even talking about medication. You know,
Oh
yes,
yeah.
here's this thing. We can do this early intervention and we can do this medication. And then you get people who they go to the doctor and it's like, here, we're going to do this medication. And that's it. And oh, by the way, you can't afford X, Y, and Z. So this is the only one medication that you can have. So even though it doesn't work, you're going to be stuck on this one or none because
Right.
you can't afford this $700 a month medication
Yeah.
that your
No.
insurance refuses to pay for because they're the experts and get to decide.
Oh yes. I ironically got a letter the other day that told me that I should not have my kid on this medication because it should not be, because there's an alternative medication that possibly could be given. And I'm like, hey, insurance company, how the hell would you know? You've never met my kid. But yes, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And yes, no, I realize every time I tell a story that I am always speaking from my privileged experience, whatever those privileges are in that scenario. But I would like to say, I hope that when you are collecting information, because that's all you have is searching from social media, I hope that you take the things that we say and use them to advocate for yourself and like at least have a starting point or a kickoff point. Just sorry, I thought my shirt was on backwards. It was distracting me. I just hope we created this podcast so that we could share our wealth of information in these given areas, either from our experiences or from our specialties that we know things. And, and in some ways, we would like you to use our privileges. Like we can go get the information that you need. Like,
Yeah,
please
absolutely.
use us.
Providing a platform, providing that platform so that people do have access to
Correct.
information because information is definitely not something that should be held close and sheltered and not shared. What's the point of having information if you're not willing to share it with others?
Right.
So that's why we're here. But every time accessibility or a social justice anything comes up, I'm going to bring it up
Yes. No.
because it
I'm
makes
used
me
to
happy.
it. Yeah. Um, yes. Um, so meltdowns. And we were talking the other day because we were Jeremy Andrew Davis, correct?
Jeremy Andrew Davis, who we
Yes.
like,
Who we
right?
oh
Let's
we
state
both
that right up
follow.
front. Like
Yes.
we enjoy the shit out of the posts that are created.
Yes.
It
This
doesn't
is
mean we have to agree with everything, even if
yes.
we enjoy them and respect the messages that come across.
Yes. This just sparked a conversation between the two of us that we were like, oh, we totally need to have this on the podcast. So it was the TikTok, which I don't have pulled up, about meltdown, how we should stop using the word meltdown and start using overload. And I said, I get where he's going, but me and my words, I experience an overload. Absolutely true. All of these things happen, too many noises, people keep touching me, and I get overloaded. That is what happens. But after the overload comes the meltdown,
Right.
because then all of my abilities melt away. And I am no longer able to make decisions, able to move. All I can do is just kind of not think because my brain stops and I am just melted away. So,
Right.
my caveat to this was I feel like it's both. I feel like, yes, the accurate description of what is happening to us is the overload, which is then followed by a meltdown of ability. And so Angela and I were just having that conversation. And so, yes,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So it's so funny because right before we got on, I was like, oh, I'm snarky today because we were talking about it a little bit. And I said, and this is going to be another episode at some time. I just know it
Right.
is. But I said, I am so fucking tired of the arguing and the bickering and the bitching and the shoulding about words
Yes.
because I can't keep up.
Right.
And I don't always agree. And we don't, as a community, we don't always agree, right? There are some
Right.
things that of course we agree on. But then there are things like meltdown. And what's the other one? There was just and neurotypical. I think this
Mhm.
was just like yesterday on LinkedIn that I saw. Like, let's get rid of the word neurotypical because for X reason, and let's change it to this. And with meltdowns, it's the same. But you and I
Mhm.
agree that meltdown is the appropriate term.
For
And
us.
by the way, he addressed this and said it's different when an autistic person says that they're having a meltdown and they use the word for themselves
Right.
versus having somebody who is not autistic see an autistic person in overload
Mhm.
and say that they are having a meltdown and put that label on them when that may not be true, or they see a child having a tantrum versus a meltdown, which are two completely different things, and they use those terms synonymously, and then they get these preconceived notions of what it means to be
Correct.
neurodivergent or autistic or ADHD or whatever. And that's where the issue comes in. And that's why words become important.
Yes. Well, and you know me and like where there was the censoring, women should not say just or
Yeah.
uh, apologize or whatever else. Me and the word just have a relationship. It's kind of like the word fuck, right? I have friends who have learned other languages and even in Russian, which is a language that I studied. there's an emphasis word that you would add on to something to show emphasis. We don't have that. English does not have a specified sound that we make to provide emphasis. So we've made it up. We've gone around and done this. We use fuck.
Yeah.
A lot. Fuck can be anything.
In all grammatical forms.
In all grammatical forms. But for me, if I am saying to you, we just did that. If I said, we did that, okay, but that does not imply the same nuance to the sentence as I just did that. I just did that means, what the fuck is wrong with you? I totally did that 3 seconds ago. Why were you doing it? If I was like, well, I did that. Okay, I did it yesterday or I did it last week. It's not the same. So please stop telling me to remove the word just from my language because I'm a woman and have a vagina. That doesn't help me.
Right. Yeah. But that's another thing, right? Like we could have entire meltdowns about the use of words.
Right.
And how one person, because their brain works this way, processes that word like this. And then this person over here, whose brain works like this, processes that word like this. And then people are going to bitch and complain. I guess the point for me, and then we can get back to meltdowns. The point for me is, fuck me. Can we just say we don't all have the same belief in this?
Right.
Let's look at the intention behind it and let's stop for just a minute before I have a trauma response to a word. And I know that there are some cases where that is accurate, but anytime we have that, if that is a consistent pattern for us, we need to address that for ourselves and ask ourselves, how are we going to address that so that it does not cause us so much emotional turmoil? And yes, it would be nice if this person over here were aware and not using this word that I don't like, but in some cases, that's not going to happen. And words like meltdown, that's one of those cases. This is not a word that everybody agrees should not be used. Right? There are some words where everybody agrees that word is offensive and harmful. And because it's offensive and harmful, legitimately has historical reason to not do this. That's different than meltdown. So some of us are going to be pissed when somebody uses the word meltdown. And some of us are going to be like, yeah, that's exactly what the fuck is happening.
Right.
It doesn't mean that we don't need to address what is happening to cause the meltdown.
Yeah. And I feel like a good example that is like a non-neurodivergent specific thing is like the word fine. Mm-hmm. When I say I'm fine, I literally mean there is not happiness, there is not sadness. I am just in this middle ground, and we do not need to continue the conversation on how I'm feeling at this given moment, and we can move on in the conversation. I am fine. Right. It is not like some sarcastic playoff. But I have met people who were, I'm like, oh, I'm fine. They lose their shit because they think I am somehow trying to notify them.
Stop being passive aggressive.
Yes, that I'm either like trying to pass it off and be, an asshole, or I am legitimately giving some type of signal that I am not okay and need to be saved.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like some of these words are similar to the word fine, where we grew up, where the things that we've experienced have indicated that word is not okay, or that word is okay, or that word is whatever. And I feel like I always start a new relationship when I'm starting a new relationship with a client or person. If I start to say for the first time, oh, I'm fine. Oh, and I mean that in a very realistic, I am okay and everything's fine. And I explain my definition.
Right.
Just to make sure that they understand my definition.
Yeah.
But
when we constantly all the time have to put our time, effort, and energy into thinking about every single word that comes out of our mouth, which I have been accused of doing so many times, and yes, I do spend a lot of time, effort, and energy on that, it can become exhausting It can lead to overload, which
Yes.
causes what?
Meltdowns!
Meltdowns!
Yes. I mm, I and I struggle on the receiving end of this. I struggle with people who do not clarify their words.
Mhm.
Where I'm like, "Okay, but I need more." And they're like, "But I just told you." I was like, "But I don't understand that."
Oh, that's that
And
bottom up thing that we talked about last week. I need
yeah,
all the details so I can see the
right.
big picture here.
Like I struggle and this is kind of funny because I've had to we joke that I can read people's minds because I analyze every fucking moment of everybody's movements. Um what was that show that it wasn't Criminal Minds where like micro emotion movements were like analyzed or what? Oh, anyway, it was some type of criminal justice show where the guy analyzed micro expressions, and I learned so much through that show, um, and it helped me understand people more. Anyway, so somehow I magically know what people are thinking, and I don't even know how I do it, but like my partner can never surprise me. Like that doesn't say anything. I won't have known that they've done something, but I'm like, "Oh, you have pre-ordered this one thing that happens in this random existence." And then I get in trouble because I ruined the surprise. But there's no way I could have even possibly known. I'm just magic like that. Um, and now that I've told that story, I totally derailed myself and I have no idea why I was telling it.
I have no idea why you were telling it either.
Fuck.
But it's a good story.
I read people. Oh, so when I don't understand people, people get very confused because they're like,
Mm.
but you can read minds. And I'm like, no, see, I hyper analyzed every moment that you have existed in the past 20 minutes to know what you were thinking. And you stopped giving me signals, and I have no clue what's happening.
Yeah.
So I need you to clarify. Well, you should just know what I'm thinking because you always know what I'm thinking. Fucking clarify. Like I need you to lay it
I
out
know
for
what you're
me.
thinking because I ask good questions and I pay attention. But now
Right.
all of that stuff went away. And because that stuff went away and I no longer have the appropriate context, I
Yes.
need that context to be provided. Thank you very much.
And so then if I don't get it, meltdown because I have no fucking clue what's happening.
Right. You no
I'm
longer are able to communicate.
no, and it drives me up a wall. Like it's one of the reasons I really want to teach my kiddo another means of communication, like either downloading an app to the tablet so that there's like an what is it, AAC app, alternate communication. I don't remember what it's called.
I don't know. I don't know what.
Where they get to click the pictures and it talks.
Yeah. I do not know the specific name of the
Oh,
app that you are looking for.
okay. So, like either downloading that or having them learn specific signs that we can like any form of ASL would be great. Because I want I want my kiddo to be able to communicate needs if possible,
Even when
but
they're non speaking.
even when they're non-speaking. And it's ironic, like Blaine, really wish I'd stop that. My kiddo didn't actually verbally communicate much until like almost 3, but had so many signs, we were able to get a lot of things communicated. And Blaine was really good about showing us how to communicate. Um, and I almost feel like speaking has caused it so that in those moments when Blaine isn't able to speak, we've lost communication,
Hmm.
which might sound funny to some families, but it's very hard when that skill is lost. Like I've
Yeah.
started to sign a lot of the things that we used to sign, just so that if we are in a meltdown or like that non-speaking situation, we can still communicate, because
Right.
I need to help. I need to help facilitate whatever my kiddo
Right.
needs, and I can't do that if
Right.
I can't connect with them and get that information. Not that I'm sitting there like trying to force them to tell me something they don't want to tell me, but like usually it's food related that we have a meltdown because I have provided something that is not in the sensory profile of the day.
Right.
I am not laughing because it's funny that they have a sensory profile, more of the sense of what I thought was on the safe foods list is not on the safe foods list for that day, and we're starting from scratch, and then we're not speaking, and then I have to come up with the list, and then I am aggravating more than helping just in order to help, and it's a whole entire situation that ends in both of us having a meltdown.
Right. Right.
So,
So let's talk about masking for just a second.
yes.
Because here's again where we might have a little bit different take than some people when it comes to masking. And I know that there will be another episode completely to this because we're not going to talk about this for more than, say, 5 minutes, right? Okay. So there are people within our community as well as outside of our community who say, drop all the masks, just drop them. Fuck everybody else and drop the masks. And I thought that maybe I was the only one who felt this way. So I started asking some people. And there are an equal amount of us who say, no, dropping all of the masks is not in our best interest. So here we are again. We've got different beliefs within our community of how things should be handled. For me, and I cannot speak for anybody else, for me, saying that I am always going to drop my masks and I am never going to pick them up and fuck that. No masks, and you can accept me without my masks and deal with it, and that's on you and it's not on me. I cannot do that because I am affected in those situations. And you know how I came into the whole coaching thing, right? Like, let's look at role play and D&D and the things that we do in these games that help support us to be able to do all the things that we want to do, and how we can use that and transfer those skills of being a great role player into our daily life.
Right.
Well, it wasn't until I started studying and understanding this whole masking and blah, 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 that I've literally been telling people, if you are in a situation that is really difficult for you, put on a role and play the role, because it will help you get to the end of that situation and you will come out less tired, less fatigued on the other end. And it's consensual. I actually did a podcast on Royally Screwed where we talked about this, and he asked me, he said, isn't that inauthentic? And I said, absolutely not. If it is purposeful, from an informed perspective, and I am consenting to doing this because it works for me and helps support me in that situation, that is part of who I am.
Right.
It is not a pretend thing, and it is not outside of my authenticity or my integrity to do that. It is creating an environment for myself that I can work within. And that's masking.
Yes. And I think that for me, I involuntarily learned to mask due to situations I was exposed to.
All of us did.
And I am well, I can only speak for myself. Uh, and I am currently trying to, well, they were removed for me with the medication, but I am still trying to sift through what skills, like yesterday at the grocery store. I really tried masking and getting through the grocery store like a normal human. That did not work. And because every time I would put it on, it felt like it would just fall off. Like I just couldn't. So I'm currently trying to figure out, like, in certain situations, how can I put on a role that works for me? Because the ones that I used to have don't.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that is the process. Like, I, I would not be able to necessarily go into some like formal scenario where I am not a person that is known and just like change the whole thing. Like there are certain things I that I can know that I have the ability to mask enough in. um like I even with my Tourette's, I have learned, which I've spoken with other people with Tourette's, this is not like a unique to me thing. We can minimize the tics into something else for a while, or some of us can, I should say.
Right. You can divert some energy to
Divert
specifically
specific
address that.
things.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we are going to be ticking like hell once we get out of that scenario, but for a small amount of time, we can divert that energy. And so it's not everybody that can do that. And not everybody can mask or like go to a board meeting and not do
Right.
whatever
And I am not,
thing.
that's the thing. That's the thing I
Mhm.
think is missing from the conversation is it's not an either or.
Mm-mm.
There's this whole middle ground that we can look at. And going to the grocery store, you weren't able to
Mm-mm.
spend some energy in pulling in your superwoman whatever, role that could go and do that. And by the way, it's never something that's so outside of who you actually are, right? It's a
Right.
piece, right? Like
Yes.
everything is still there. You're
I
just
mean,
pulling energy from something, right? You're pulling energy from this character that you've created, or and that's really, to me, that's really what masking is it's a different character that you are in with different characteristics and different traits that help you get through a situation. Um,
I
and
mean,
I do not want anybody coming and saying that's dissociative identity disorder. It most definitely is not. There is a difference. And we can drop some links in to help you understand the difference between masking and DID because it is not the same. Um, and I don't want anybody diagnosing me and telling me that that's something that's going on for me because it's not. And that's not fair to people with DID to say that what I am talking about is that it is not the same. Um, can you tell I've had that conversation before?
I can. Well, okay. I just looked at the clock. So this episode went so fast that I just could not keep. Like, I can't believe we are already
We
at
knew that
43
was going
minutes.
to happen. We had
We
3
did.
topics.
I know, but it was one of those things where, FYI, behind the scenes, we knew if we talked about one, we would talk about the other, which would lead to the third, and we couldn't not do it that way.
Right. Right.
So, yes. So yes, this turned out great. So anyway.
Yes. Okay. Any last thoughts?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I have a feeling we will continue this conversation in a future episode. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening to Drudgery Dreams and In Between, a weekly live podcast coming to you every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific. Subscribe now wherever podcasts are found. If you'd like to support the podcast, be sure to leave a rating and review and share with your friends. To catch all the latest from us, visit us at drudgeryanddreams.com and follow on your favorite social media platforms at Drudgery and Dreams. Thanks again. See you next time.